Hey, Footprints, always a pleasure to be able to share with you guys. I know we typically do our good, bad, and godly. We usually do with our meeting, but there's just been so much going on the last couple of weeks, as many of you know. Um, I didn't want to take up too much time at our meeting this weekend because I like to hear how God's moving for everybody else as well. That's why, I talked to Matt a little bit, and he said that this should be just perfectly fine because you guys I really want you guys to know what's been going on. Those of you who I've not been able to speak to directly the last few days. Of course, with how everything started off, of course, it does definitely initially look like so many bad things have happened. Um, Starting back even a few weeks ago, like I brought out at our last meeting, I kept trying to get in touch with the boss, and our crew lead would not get information back to me about working because of missing work the way that I did, and you know, with our off times with work, it just shot the money that I owed to my landlord up again and again and again, and it just reached the point. The boss even said, "Hey, we got something going on." I let the landlord know, "Hey, I'm going to get you some money this week," and then turned around and that job canceled on us. So basically, it starts off as a bad that you know my landlord did what they could to help me out. I'm not mad at him over this situation. It was not. They worked with me as much as they could, and it reached a point where they just said we can't do this anymore. We want to get our money too, and I don't have a problem with that. Granted, that has left me in a rather precarious situation. And then to top it off, after everything that happened with that, moving out. Let me see. That would have been the 12th. After packing up everything I could in my truck and heading out on the 12th, um, I I knew at least for a couple of nights I could probably there was some place that I could stay in the truck pretty close to the job site, and thank goodness that's where I went because um, getting up the next day, started to head out in the truck. I told you all about this a little bit. I posted about it a little bit, and some guy cuts across the parking lot. I slam on my brakes to miss him. When I go to take off, I'm just the most horrible, just absolute most horrible, just hideous sound coming from underneath the front driver's side tire. I'm terrified to drive the truck at this point because I'm already looking at the situation where I don't have any place to stay, and now then it looks like I'm not even going to have a vehicle. Um, so many of y'all have been right there for me and everything, and yes, this all does sound so horribly bad. Um, Drew, man, I love you, bro. I love you, bro. I appreciate so much everything that you've done. You came by, you took a look at the truck, and instead of it being, this is going to touch on some of the good part of it. Instead of it being a part that was going to cost me a pretty good chunk, and I would have had to have replaced to get the truck moving, man, Drew, I appreciate you taking a look at it, seeing that it was that front axle from the four-wheel drive, and that by removing just that axle part, I'm able to drive again. I told you to your face, but I'd share it with the whole group. Thank you, Drew. Thanks to you. Thanks to your dad, William, for taking some time out. You know, um, on top of so many other things, Drew and Kat, man, them chips have been great. That chicken was amazing. I can't thank you guys enough. Um, with all of this bad and there, the good there with being able to get the truck going pretty quickly, pretty easily in the big scheme of things. It kind of takes me to the godly part, which lines up so perfectly with our series on hope, with our series before dealing with um, sometimes God's script isn't our script, which then again falls perfectly in line with current uh, our current series that Jeff's ministering on, that Jeff's preaching on. That being the Plan B, and through all of this, and some conversation that I had with Matt, conversation I've had with a couple of people. I'm everything that Jeff was saying last week, just this past Sunday, all of those thoughts, all of those things he was talking about, that's what was going through my head before service last Sunday. And when God started speaking those through Jeff, you know, God reassured me that I've got a plan B. I've got your back. I knew this was all going to happen. And it just gave me such an assurance. And that's when God took it a step further. And staying up at staying out in Walmart's parking lot the way that I have. Obviously, I go into Walmart a lot, and there was a young lady who was working there at the tax desk that they had set up in the front. A couple of times I went through, I tried to at least get her to smile a little bit, just like, man, you look bored off your rocker, just sitting there, and she'd be like, I am. And so Wednesday I decided to just kind of talk to her a little bit, just to kind of break the boredom with her. And we didn't really talk about anything specific to begin with. Just talking about all kinds of things, and suddenly a statement that I made, the conversation led to it, and a particular statement that I made, she just kind of froze for a minute and looked at me, and I was like, "What?" She goes, "I've been sitting here for the last couple of days, debating and contemplating on a question, and you just answered that question." She said, "It is such a coincidence." Which you guys know me, the first thing that I do is go, "No, that was not a coincidence." You see, God ordained this moment for me to answer that question that He knew you had. I had no clue about the question that she had. I had no clue what she had been thinking about for 2 days. And, you know, when we look at Plan B, when we look at that script that God lays out for our lives, if I had gone to work those couple of days that I was so frustrated about missing, I would have missed the opportunity to show that young lady that God was listening to what she was meditating on. And in the flesh, it's so difficult. It really is. But I was so thankful that God opened up that opportunity. And as of our last conversation, her and her boyfriend are looking to show up tomorrow for service, and I'm praying that the enemy doesn't come against them in such a way that it hinders. She started asking about the church that we go to, the church that we call our home. And I was all too happy to share with her about the kind of people that we are, not just us in Footprints, but the church as a whole, because, I mean, there's just so much there. How many of the reports do we hear every week? It's like Sherry always has some kind of a win listed for those of us. And I would have missed that opportunity. I would have never been there if my script had have been used, if plan A had have proceeded. I mean, does it make it easier, the situation, still trying to find some place to stay in the flesh? No, it doesn't. But I, all I can say is that conversation may have made an eternal difference in her life, in her boyfriend's life, and potentially in the future, if their relationship develops, in their kids' lives. And when I really look at it that way, I guess it's kind of like Paul said when he was speaking about Christ. It says that for the joy that was set before him, he endured even the cross. And just being able to see firsthand so quickly where God's plan B was. It's really made a difference it's definitely really made a difference in my outlook and my view on the stuff that's going on. I'm not giving up trying to find a bed to sleep in, but I'm starting to see the joy of God's plan in this. I thank you guys, and I look forward to seeing y'all tomorrow at service. And I'm definitely, definitely looking forward to meeting tomorrow night. Man, 2 weeks is just too long. Love you guys.